Hello YouTube. It's finally time for the Cataclysm content creation to begin. Are all of you excited for this expansion? Because I know I'm not. I'm pretty sure this expansion is going to be deader than my fucking social life. And I didn't even think that was possible. But we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe Sod won't completely kill Kata. Maybe there's a small population of people out there who don't want to do raids that a group of brain damaged, autistic squirrels could clear. One can only hope. In fact, I really hope that this is the case because Cataclysm is the greatest expansion for healers, in my opinion. It's like the perfect middle ground between the old World of Warcraft and the new. In the older expansions, healing is mostly about understanding the core game mechanics and having good fundamentals. So stuff like mana management, avoiding overhealing, good teamwork, good preemptive healing, choosing the right players to heal at the right time and with the right spell. All of that stuff matters a lot in the older expansions, and it still matters in Kata. Whereas in modern WoW, I feel like most of that gameplay has been stripped away and replaced with more spells, DPS focused class design, raid cooldowns, and smart healing and stuff like that, which I don't really like, but Cataclysm has a lot of that stuff going on as well. So Kata isn't perfect, but in my opinion, it's the best state that healing has ever been in and ever will be. So I'm hoping that you guys will be able to appreciate what Blizzard was able to do here with healing because it's going to be a lot of fun. However, there is one thing that I will warn you about, and that is dungeon healing. Dungeon healing is going to be cancer, especially if you queue up with the dungeon finder. Now, if you have an organized group, it won't be too bad, but for the majority of people, the dungeons at the beginning of Kata are going to be miserable to heal because Blizzard designed them so that if your party makes mistakes, they take borderline unhealable damage. It's pretty similar to healing TBC heroic dungeons if you ever did that. You're going to feel like you don't have much control and you're going to wipe a lot. And it's not going to be very fun, but I would encourage you to not be dissuaded from healing because of the dungeons. Just stick it out until you get to the raids because raid healing is really great. So that's my advice to you. So now let's move on to what this video is actually about. I'm going to talk about each healer, and then I'm going to rate them based on how viable they are, how difficult they are to play, and how fun they are. Now, obviously, fun is subjective, and everyone has their own opinions, so if I find something fun that you personally don't find fun, well, guess what? I'm right and you're wrong, so get fucked, bitch. This is my goddamn video. You are going to enjoy what I tell you to enjoy. And this first healer that I'm going to talk about, you better fucking enjoy, or else. And that is my main, the Restoration Druid. Now, the first thing that you need to know about every healer in this expansion is that they're all raid healers. Every healer specializes in raid healing, and Resto Druid is no exception. It's not like TBC where Holy Pallies were spot healers and Resto Druids were tank healers, or like Wrath where Holy Pallies were both spot healers and tank healers. In this expansion, everyone is a raid healer, which means if your healing class can do other things besides just raid healing, you will be very valuable in a raid. And fortunately for Resto Druid, they are not just good at raid healing, but they also provide very good and consistent tank healing. They're not amazing tank healers like they were in TBC, but they're good at it. And you'll certainly want one in your raid for that reason. And they also bring replenishment, which is a buff that gives a bunch of people mana back, so you'll definitely want that. Now, when it comes to the type of raid healing that Resto Druid does, they are specifically good at spread out raid healing, which is important because that's what makes you strong in 10 man. But it's also important for 25 man because in Kata, there are only two healers that are good at spread out raid healing, Priest and Druid. So the main tip that I will give you, regardless of which class you play, is to play to your strengths on every boss. So if the whole raid is taking damage, then the Priest and the Druid should prioritize healing the players that are spread out, which more often than not will be the ranged, and then the Pally and Shaman healers should prioritize healing the players that are stacked. Now, the most unique thing about Resto Druid and Kata is tree form. This ability is the most complex ability I've ever seen given to a healer. It has the potential to do a lot of healing, but it is very difficult to use properly. I've watched at least 50 Resto Druid videos from original Kata, and I haven't seen a single person use it properly. So this is my warning to you. If you choose to play Resto Druid in Cataclysm, just make sure that you are prepared mentally, physically, and sexually for tree form. Because that ability is one tough son of a bitch to use. But have no fear, because I will release a Resto Druid guide at some point that'll definitely help you out. But in the meantime, let's rate Resto Druids. So in terms of viability, I'd give Resto Druid a 9 out of 10 in 25 man, and a 10 out of 10 in 10 man. There's a lot of 10s. But yeah, Resto Druid works really well in 10 man because you can utilize all of your spells to their full potential in a 10 man raid. Unlike, say, a Resto Shaman, who can't really use Healing Rain very effectively in a 10 man because you want to hit as many people as possible with that ability, ideally. And in terms of how difficult Resto Druid is to play, I'd say it's a 7 out of 10 if you ignore tree form. It's pretty much just maintaining Life Bloom and maintaining your mastery buff while pressing Swift Mend, Wild Growth, and Rejuve as much as possible without overhealing. Not too bad, but the existence of tree form makes Resto Druid a 10 difficulty-wise, in my opinion. And lastly, in terms of fun, I'd give it a 10 as well. I wasn't expecting Resto Druid to ever be as fun as it was in TBC, but they did a really great job. I'm very impressed. So I will happily be maining Resto Druid in Cataclysm. Alrighty, next up, let's do the most controversial healer. The most sus healer. The healer that will cause the most drama in Cataclysm. The Holy Paladin. What is wrong with Holy Paladin? Well, to be honest, not much. They actually did a really great job at designing Holy Paladin to be fun and interesting and have a high skill cap. But then they added one spell that ruins everything. And I'm not specifically going to tell you what that spell is, but what I will say is that one of these three statements is true. 1, I have a drug and alcohol problem. 2, I have a huge penis. And 3, Holy Radiance is overpowered and needs to be nerfed. Now, I think it's pretty obvious which of these three statements is true. Here's a little history for you. So originally, Holy Radiance was a 30-second cooldown raid heal that was really efficient and really high HPS if it hit everyone in the raid. Kind of a weird addition to Holy Paladin, in my opinion, but at least it wasn't overpowered, which means that Holy Paladins were still very much spot healers and tank healers during most of original Cataclysm. But in the Dragonsoul patch, which is the patch that Blizzard is going to be using, they had a brilliant idea. And that idea was to remove the cooldown off of Holy Radiance. So now what you have is this high HBM and high HBS raid-wide heal that can be spammed. What could go wrong? Well, the problem is when you add abilities like this is that the gameplay is going to revolve around using that one spell. You will still use Holy Shock and Light of Dawn, and maybe some other spells occasionally, but you're mostly just going to be spamming Holy Radiance. So the gameplay is going to be kind of brain dead, and Holy Pallies are going to be kind of OP, but the most pressing issue is that the entire theme of Holy Paladin has changed. You're no longer a spot healer, tank healer hybrid. Now you're just a full-on raid healer, because Holy Radiance doesn't transfer through Beacon. So you're not really going to be doing anything besides spamming raid healing the whole time. And another problem is that this playstyle might have negative effects on the game as a whole, because all that tank healing and spot healing that Holy Paladins used to do before the Dragon Soul patch now has to be compensated for by the other healers. So we'll see how that goes. On top of that, Holy Paladin is going to play much differently in 10-man than it will in 25-man because you don't get that many good Holy Radiance opportunities in 10-man. So Holy Paladins actually do take a lot of skill to play in 10-man because you have to use all of your spells. But in 25-man, they're just going to be stupid and OP, I think. So now let's rate Holy Paladin. In terms of viability, in 25-man, they're a solid 10. In fact, you'll almost certainly bring 2. They've got the triple whammy, you know, crazy high HPS, good cooldowns, good utility. They got it all. However, in 10-man, I'd give them an 8 out of 10 because Holy Radiance and Light of Dawn can't be used as well in 10-man, which is kind of an L. In fact, I think Holy Paladins will get absolutely cum dumpstered by Disc Priests and Wrestle Druids in 10-man, at least in terms of HPS. But, you know, they have good cooldowns and utilities, so they're still pretty good. In terms of difficulty, I'd give them a 6 out of 10 in 25-man. You know, they're kind of brain dead. They're kind of designed for children and sod players. But, you know, they're a 9 out of 10 in 10-man. So that's pretty cool. And in terms of fun, well, to be honest, being OP is fun. But I don't really enjoy the gameplay personally, so I gotta give it a nice casual 7. Now let's move on to a healer that's not as stupid and cringe. Let's talk about the Disc Priests. Now I know what you're saying. I play Wrath of the Lich King, and Disc Priests are the most cringe and the most toxic healers, and everyone who plays one is an idiot. And you would be right. That's exactly what they are. Except in Cataclysm, Disc actually takes skill to play. Booyah! And they're not toxic anymore. They don't just absorb all the incoming damage spamming one button. They're not like that. They have ascended. They've become something more. So what has actually changed with Disc Priest? Well, to be honest, not much. If you look at the healing per mana list for Disc Priest and Kata, it's actually not too different from Wrath. Prayer Mending, Prayer of Healing, and Penance are still your most efficient heals, just like they were before. So if that was the case, then why did everyone just spam Powered Shield in Wrath? Well, it's because in Wrath you had an abundance of mana, which means you could get away with using less efficient spells like Powered Shield, and the health bars moved up and down really fast in Wrath, which meant that heals with long cast times or long channel times like Prayer of Healing and Penance were really difficult to land without overhealing. So it ended up just being better to spam Powered Shield the majority of the time because shields don't overheal. However, Kata is very much the opposite of Wrath. The pace of the game is much slower, mana is less abundant, and bosses live longer on average. So if you were to try and spam Powered Shield in Kata, you would just go in 2 minutes, and your healing would be trash because the healing per mana of Powered Shield sucks ass. So the biggest change to Disc in Kata is just that you have to use all of your spells now. And honestly, it's really fun. But one thing to keep in mind is that you will have to do damage to heal, because doing damage gives you Evangelism stacks, and Evangelism stacks lets you use Archangel, which is a really strong buff. But it's not going to be like Mop, where you just endlessly spam damage to heal. Smite in Cataclysm is just not a very efficient spell. Even when it's all juiced up by Evangelism and Lift of Smite and all that shit, it's still just not that great. And thank fucking God for that, because I hate smart healing. I think smart healing is horrible for the game. So I'm really happy that spamming Smite is not the optimal way to heal. Other than that though, Disc Priest is one of the most versatile healers in the game. They can tank heal, spot heal, and raid heal very well. They can heal people who are spread out or stacked up very well. And they have good cooldowns. So Disc will be very strong in 10-man because 10-man requires healers to be versatile. In 25-man, they won't be able to pump out as much HPS as Holy Paladins can, but I still think you'll be required to have one in your raid mainly to compensate for the fact that Holy Paladins will not be doing much of anything besides pressing Holy Radiance the whole time. I was actually going to play Holy Paladin as my second healer, but I've decided to play Disc Priest in 10 man instead because I think it's going to be really fun. So if I were to rate Disc Priest, I'd give them a 9 for viability in 25 man and a 10 in 10 man. As far as how difficult they are to play, I'd give them a 9 actually. Huge step up from Wrath, where their difficulty was a solid -0 out of 10. In Kata, Disc actually has a really engaging gameplay loop. Their mana management is more complex than any other healer, and the gameplay is basically juggling between getting evangelism stacks while using prayer of healing as much as possible, maintaining grace on the tank, finding times to use heal or greater heal on the tank, and also using powered shield at the right times and on the right people. It's actually a lot more complicated than it might seem initially, and I highly doubt many players will be doing it properly. And lastly, in terms of fun, I'd give them a 10. Isn't that great? So many fun healers to play in Cataclysm, including the one that I'm going to talk about right now, the Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman in Kata is the best version of Resto Shaman that I've ever seen. It's actually really engaging to min-max in a raid. But overall, I'd say the best part of being a Resto Shaman in Kata is that you feel powerful. Whereas with the other healers, I feel like you're kind of tickling everyone's wieners to death with your heals. Shamans are not like that. When shit hits the fan, I'm never really scared when I play Shaman because I know that I can just throw out a healing rain and some fast cast greater healing waves because of tidal waves, and everything will be okay. And speaking of healing rain, this spell is the main difference between Wrath, Resto Shaman, and Kata. Healing rain is an amazing spell. It's very efficient and very high HPS, and this is especially true when the raid is at low health, since Shaman's Mastery makes it so that your spells heal for more when people are low health. A lot more, actually. So your gameplay is mainly going to revolve around Healing Rain and Riptide. Those are your two best spells in Kata by far. So you're going to be using those as much as humanly possible, and then spending whatever mana you have remaining on Chain Heal, ideally. And Shamans also actively regenerate mana with Telluric Currents, which makes your Lightning Bolts give you mana back. And this form of mana regen scales very well with gear. So once you have a lot of haste and spell power, you'll be regenerating fuck tons of mana, which means you'll need to be spending fuck tons of mana, and eventually as you get more gear, the gameplay will be this ebb and flow of spending your mana bar as fast as possible while simultaneously regenerating it all back with Lightning Bolt. And honestly, it's really fun. I like it. But the main issue that I have with Shaman is its viability. Shaman's main strength is stacked up raid healing. It's always been their main strength. But now since Blizzard is using the Dragon Soul patch, Holy Paladins are actually better than Shamans at stacked up raid healing, which is kind of cringe, honestly. So that'll make Shaman's viability in 25 men go down. But they still bring Manatide Totem, and they also bring Ancestral Healing, which is straight up better and easier to apply than the Priest's version of this ability. And as far as I know, they don't stack. So I feel like you'll still want one Resto Shaman in your 25 man for those two reasons. However, in 10 man, Resto Shaman isn't that great because you can't get the full effectiveness of Healing Rain and Chain Heal in 10 man. Oh well. So if I were to rate Resto Shaman, I'd give them an 8 in 25 man and a 6 in 10 man. For difficulty, I'd give them an 8 because there's a lot of little things you can min-max with this version of Resto Shaman, which I really love. I really, really do. And in terms of fun, I mean, that shit's a 10, easily, for fun. Highly recommended. I mean, Resto Shamans are the absolute bomb diggity, my friends, in Cataclysm. So, you should definitely play one. Now let's move on to a healer that I strongly do not recommend that you play, because I hate it, and that is the Holy Priest. Now, you guys might not hate it as much as I do, but let me just tell you what you're getting into by playing the Holy Priest. So first off, you get a new ability called Chakra. Now, what this raping ability does is it heavily incentivizes you to heal in a particular way based on which chakra buff you have active. So there's a single target healing chakra and an AoE healing chakra, and you're locked into that specific chakra that you choose for 30 seconds, which is already pretty bad. But the main issue is that the single target healing chakra is fucking trash! Which means for the most part, you're just going to be sitting in the AoE healing chakra for the entire fight. So why is that bad? Well, the reason it's bad is because of versatility. Disc Priest is one of the most versatile healers in the game. They can do everything. Holy Priest, on the other hand, is the least versatile healer in the game. You're basically a raid healing bitch, and I'll show you why. Look at the healing per mana breakdown. You see how all of your best regular healing spells are AoE heals? That's not a good thing, because like I said before, every healer in Kata is good at raid healing. So what's the point of bringing a raid healing bitch to the raid when every other healer can do good spot healing and good tank healing in addition to doing good raid healing? Another issue is that Holy Priest struggles on mana more than every other healer. So while a Resto Shaman will have the mana to throw out the occasional greater healing wave every now and again, a Holy Priest, because of their limited mana, will have to stick to using only their high HPM spells, which are all raid heals. So that's the first cringe thing. The next cringe thing is Lightwell. Lightwell is, unfortunately, incredibly strong in Kata, which means in an ideal world, Lightwell would make up a big part of your healing. And the problem with that is, ain't nobody clicking on your damn Lightwell. Okay, like if you fucking ask me to click your Lightwell, I'm gonna be like, well, what do you think I am, your bitch or something? Like, what are you gonna ask me to do next? Suck your dick? Motherfucker, I ain't doing that. Are you out of your goddamn mind? I mean, unless your fucking Lightwell is paying my goddamn rent and paying my wife's boyfriend's rent, I ain't fucking clicking on that shit. Get that shit out of here. And you know, if people do click on your Lightwell, they're most likely to troll the shit out of you with it. Because you can just spam click this shit out of combat and while you're at full health. So if people wanted to, they could just sabotage your Lightwell. And I don't want to deal with that. And unfortunately, the cringe doesn't end there, because your new AoE heal, Holy Word Sanctuary, is pretty retarded, honestly. Like, this spell is basically for role players, because it's very pretty and sparkly and beautiful, but it doesn't do any goddamn healing. You basically need the entire 25-man raid to stand in this shit for 20 seconds straight in order for it to be worth casting. And even if you do manage to get the whole raid to stand in it, it's still not very good. So all in all, your gameplay loop is going to be this. You're going to spam these three abilities over and over and over again for the whole fight. And click your own Lightwell. That's it. That's your gameplay. And, you know, if you're feeling like a dirty boy, you can even keep Renew up on the tank. Although Renew is kind of trash until you get a bunch of haste, so just don't overuse it. Okay? Don't get crazy. Stick to your 3-button rotation, like a good boy. So if I were to rate Holy Priest, I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for 25-man, mainly because Holy Priest's version of Divine Hymn is extremely strong. So you'll probably want one in your raid for that reason. And in 10-man, I'd give it a 5 out of 10, because versatility is king in 10-man, and Holy Priest don't got no goddamn versatility. So that's unfortunate. But as for difficulty, I'd also give it a 5 out of 10. It's kind of down there with Holy Paladin, you know. You're basically going to be spamming 3 buttons over and over. And keep in mind that dungeon healing is going to be a rough son of a bitch with Holy Priest, because your tank healing is going to be trash if you're in Chakra Sanctuary, and your group healing is going to be trash if you're in Chakra Serenity. So that'll be pretty miserable. But luckily I don't have to deal with that because I'm playing disc. So get fucked. And as for how fun it is, well, I don't personally find turning my brain off and spamming 3 buttons over and over to be fun, but a lot of other people might like that. And another thing to keep in mind is that HPS is not an issue with Holy Priest. Holy Priest does good healing if you just press those 3 buttons over and over. And remember what I said, you're a raid healing bitch. If you deviate from that role and you start throwing out renews and greater heals and swapping chakras and all this shit, your healing's just going to go down. So in terms of fun, I'd give it a 6. And that's it. That's the end of the video. I've thrown all the ratings together so you can take a good long look. Take a good look, because this is your future, ladies and gentlemen. Choose wisely. Bye-bye now.